Hello everybody, welcome to the show. Please hit the subscribe button and give this episode a thumbs hell. The morning felt unusually heavy inside the house, as if something invisible was pressing down on every corner, and everyone could sense that the day was going to break open into a storm long before a single word was spoken. Pumpkin stepped into the living room expecting nothing more than the usual routine, but the moment her eyes caught the open envelope on the table, her entire world seemed to pause, because she knew exactly what that empty envelope meant, and every memory of past disappointments came crashing back into her chest like a wave that refused to stop. She picked up the envelope slowly, her hands trembling, because she had prayed so many times that this day would never repeat itself. But here it was staring back at her. The money was gone. The only savings they had kept aside for food bills and for Alana's school needs disappeared without a trace, and Pumpkin felt something inside her break in a way she could barely hide. She called for June, once softly, hoping she had misunderstood. But the silence inside the house felt louder than a scream, and the quietness itself answered her before June even stepped into the room. When June finally walked in, she avoided Pumpkin's eyes like someone who already knew she had done something she should not have done, and Pumpkin felt her anger and heartbreak merge into something she could barely control, because she had fought too many battles to protect this family, and every time she thought they were moving forward, something dragged them back. Again and again Pumpkin lifted the empty envelope, and her voice cracked not from anger but from pain, because she knew this mistake could destroy everything she had been building for Alana, for their future, for a home that did not feel broken. June stood still, trying to form words that held no strength, and she said the same thing she had said many times before, that she only borrowed it, that she was going to return it. But Pumpkin felt her entire body go cold, because borrowed had become another word for lost, another excuse, another reason to step into chaos again. And Alana stood quietly at the doorway, her eyes filled with the same sadness she had carried for years, the kind that no child should ever carry. She hugged her arms tightly around herself, and her voice came out small, shaking, as she said she just wanted peace. She just wanted a normal life, a home without fear, a home where mornings did not start with hurt and broken trust. Pumpkin pulled her close, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing deeper into her heart, because she had promised to keep Alana safe. She had fought the custody battle, walked into courtrooms, filled forms, faced judges, answered questions about their past and their future, and every single time she stood strong because she believed she could give Alana stability. But this one mistake that June made could cost them everything. Pumpkin looked at June, and her voice steadied into something powerful, something that came from months of silent strength. She told June that if she wanted to be a part of this family, if she wanted to stay in Alana's life, she would have to prove it, not with weak promises, not with borrowed excuses, but with real change, because the custody hearing was coming, and every action, every choice, every mistake mattered now more than ever. June lowered her head as if the truth itself was too heavy to look at, and the room felt divided into two worlds, one holding pain, responsibility, and hope, and the other drowning in guilt, brokenness, and old habits that refused to let go. Alana whispered that she could not live like this forever, that she wanted a home that felt safe, that she wanted a life where she did not have to worry about who would fail her next. And when Pumpkin heard that, her heart clenched, because she understood she was not just fighting a legal battle, she was fighting for Alana's childhood, for her peace, for her right to grow without fear. June stood there silent, feeling like an outsider in her own family, watching her daughters stand closer to each other than they stood to her, and she knew this moment was different. This was not just another fight, this was the moment that would decide whether she still had a place in their future. The air inside the room felt thick with things that had been left unsaid and wounds that had not healed, and Pumpkin looked at June with a depth of hurt that came from years of trying and failing and trying again, as she said, this family cannot continue like this. This home cannot survive on promises that break every time life gets difficult. If you want us, you need to fight for us the right way. For the first time, June had no argument, no excuse, only silence, because deep down she knew this time she had pushed them too far, and she could see it in their eyes that trust once broken this deeply was not easy to rebuild. And as the morning light came through the window, it fell over three hearts trying to hold themselves together, each carrying their own wounds, their own fears, their own hope that somehow this broken home could still be saved. The tension inside the house did not fade even after the morning stretched into early afternoon, and Pumpkin felt the weight of everything sit on her shoulders like a burden she could not shake off, no matter how hard she tried. She sat at the edge of the couch, holding her head in her hands, thinking about the upcoming custody hearing, thinking about how she would have to explain every detail of their life to strangers who would decide the future of her sister based on evidence and patterns and not on love. And she wondered how she would stand in front of them now after what had just happened. Alana sat beside her, curled up and silent, her eyes staring at the floor as if she was afraid that looking up would make the reality even harder to process. She wanted to feel safe, she wanted to believe that this time things would change, but she had been hoping for that for years, and every time her heart ended up with another crack. June leaned against the kitchen wall, her hands shaking slightly as she watched her daughters fall apart because of her mistake, and for the first time in a long time she felt the full weight of her choices sitting inside her chest like a stone. She wanted to speak, to explain, to beg for another chance, but she knew that words had lost their value here, because every promise she had made had been broken before, and she knew Pumpkin no longer trusted what she said, she only trusted what she saw. Pumpkin finally looked up, and her voice was tired but firm as she told June That what happened today would not just stay inside this house because the court would ask questions and she would have to speak the truth. She would have to say that June took money again, that June made choices that put them all at risk, and she knew how that would look to the judge. She knew how dangerous this could be for Alana. June felt her heart drop because she understood she had put the custody case in danger, and even though she wanted to fix it, she did not know where to begin. She tried to step closer to them, but Pumpkin raised her hand slightly, telling her to stay back because she needed space to think, space to breathe, space to stop herself from breaking down. Again Alana looked up for a moment, her eyes full of questions she had never asked out loud, and she said something that caused June to freeze where she stood. She asked, "Why do you always choose things that hurt us? Why do you love things that destroy our family?" And June felt those words slice through her because the truth was she did not know why she made the same mistakes again and again. She did not know why she always ran from the pain instead of fixing it. She just knew she was tired of being the reason her children suffered, tired of carrying the weight of her past that never truly left her, and tired of feeling like she was losing her family one choice at a time. Pumpkin took a deep breath and stood up, her voice finally steadying. She told June that the only way forward was through action, not speeches. She needed to show up to meetings, she needed to keep herself clean, she needed to attend counseling, she needed to earn trust back, not ask for it, because trust was not something they could give blindly anymore. June nodded because she knew Pumpkin was right, and for the first time she felt a determination inside her that she had not felt in years, a desire to fight for her family and not for herself. But Pumpkin did not soften. She knew words of determination meant nothing unless they were backed by real change. She told June that if she slipped again, this could be the final break, the one that none of them would recover from. The sun slowly began to set and the entire house felt heavy with the weight of the day, as if every wall had absorbed their pain. Pumpkin sat back down, pulling Alana close to her as if trying to shield her from the emotional storm swirling around them, and she whispered to her that she was not going to let anything take her away, that she would fight until her last breath for her happiness, her safety, and her future. June watched silently, realizing that her daughters had built a bond stronger than anything she had ever managed to give them, and she felt both pride and sadness because she knew she had caused much of their pain, and she wondered if she would ever truly be able to fix what she broke. As night settled and the house stayed quiet, but it was not the peaceful kind of quiet, it was the heavy quiet of a family trying to hold itself together after being shaken to its core. And deep inside, June made a promise to herself that she would change, that she would fight, that she would not let this be the end of their family, even if she had to rebuild from the ground up. But Pumpkin knew promises were not enough anymore. She needed proof, she needed change, she needed consistency, and she needed to protect Alana from any more heartbreak. The night ended with all three of them in separate corners of the house, each lost in their own thoughts, their own fears, their own hopes, wondering if tomorrow would bring healing or another storm, because this family was standing on a line so thin that one more mistake could break everything. The next morning arrived with a cold stillness that wrapped itself around the house like a warning that things were about to change, whether they were ready or not. Pumpkin woke up with the same heaviness in her chest, the same sharp awareness that one mistake could collapse everything she had worked to build for Alana. She moved quietly through the house and found Alana already awake, sitting at the edge of the couch, staring out the window as if searching for answers in the sky. Her eyes looked older than her age, carrying the weight of responsibilities and disappointments that she should never have had to deal with. Pumpkin sat beside her, gently placing a hand on her back, and Alana leaned into her without saying a word, because sometimes silence was the only language that made sense between them. June eventually stepped out of her room, her face tired, her hair messy, her eyes swollen from crying through the night. She wanted to speak, wanted to apologize again, wanted to fix something. Anything, but the moment she saw the distance her daughters had placed between her and themselves, she froze, unsure if she even deserved the chance to try. Pumpkin stood up, her voice firm, but not angry, as she told June they needed to talk, and not the kind of talk that ended with another promise, but a real talk about what came next, about what steps would be taken, about how they would protect themselves from repeating the same cycle again. June nodded nervously because she knew this was the moment that would decide her future with her daughters, and she sat down slowly, bracing herself for whatever she was about to hear. Pumpkin began by explaining that the custody hearing was not just about legal rights, it was about proving to the court that she could provide a stable environment for Alana, a place without chaos, without uncertainty, without fear. She explained that every action, every slip, every missing dollar mattered, because judges do not look at feelings, they look at patterns, history, consequences, and she could not lie for June, not anymore, not when Alana's entire life depended on the truth. June listened quietly, her hands twisting nervously as guilt crawled up her spine. She wanted to defend herself, but she knew there was nothing she could say that would erase what she had done, so she sat there absorbing every word like a student learning how much she had already failed. Pumpkin continued, telling her that the court would ask about finances, about responsibility, about who makes stable choices and who does not. She told June that the missing money was not just a small issue, it was evidence of instability, evidence of broken trust, evidence that could decide whether the judge allowed June any say in Alana's life at all. Alana listened from the couch, her eyes shining with tears she tried to hide, because she hated being the reason her family was falling apart. She hated that she had to choose between love and safety. She hated that her childhood had turned into a courtroom discussion, and she whispered softly that she just wanted a life where she did not have to worry about who would disappoint her next, that she wanted a home that felt like a home, not a battlefield. June felt her heart crumble hearing those words, because nothing hurt more than realizing her own daughter felt unsafe around her. She realized she had pushed them so far that they had to protect themselves from her choices, and that realization burned More than any punishment the world could give. Pumpkin took a deep breath and laid down clear boundaries. She told June she needed to attend counseling, she needed to stay sober, she needed to stay accountable, she needed to rebuild trust step by step, not all at once. She made it clear that one slip, one lie, one excuse could be the end, because they were done risking Alana's stability for the sake of holding the family together by force. June nodded slowly, tears gathering in her eyes, because she finally understood how fragile everything had become. She understood that her daughters had grown stronger without her, and if she wanted to be part of their future, she would need to change completely. She would need to fight harder than she ever had before. As the conversation went on, the air became heavy with unspoken emotions. Pumpkin spoke from a place of strength and exhaustion. Alana spoke from a place of pain and longing, and June listened from a place of regret and fear. The three of them caught in a moment that felt like a turning point. Something that could either lead to healing or shatter whatever was left. When the talk finally ended, the house fell silent again, but this silence felt different. It was not the net. Pumpkin hugged Alana close, promising again that she would protect her, that she would fight for her, that she would make sure nothing pulled them back into the darkness. June stood at a distance watching them, her heart aching but also awakening with a new determination. She finally understood that love alone was not enough. She needed discipline, she needed change, she needed to rebuild everything from the ground up. The day continued with quiet movements, each of them lost in their thoughts, but now there was something new lingering in the air, something that looked a little like hope and a little like fear, because they all knew the road ahead was long and full of challenges, but for the first time there was a chance that they might walk it together. If June truly changed, if Pumpkin remained strong, if Alana found peace inside her wounded heart, they might still save this broken home from falling apart completely. The evening settled over the house slowly like a heavy blanket, and the soft fading light made every shadow inside the room feel longer and deeper than usual. Pumpkin cooked a simple dinner, even though she was not hungry, because she knew Alana needed some sense of normal routine, something familiar, something that reminded her she was still cared for and safe. Alana sat at the table quietly stirring her food without eating much, her thoughts drifting far away from the present moment. She was thinking about the custody meeting, about school, about her future, and somewhere deep inside she wondered if she would ever get to experience a normal teenage life without fear, without tension, without unpredictable storms. June watched from a distance, unsure if she should join them or give them space. Every movement she made felt wrong, as if she was a visitor inside her own home, afraid to step too close, afraid to break something that already felt fragile. Pumpkin finally motioned for her to sit, because avoiding each other would only make the walls between them grow thicker. June sat down slowly, her heart pounding as if she was waiting for a verdict she already knew would not go in her favor. They ate in silence, the kind that speaks louder than arguments, and when dinner was over, Pumpkin began cleaning up while Alana went to her room. June stood there watching them, wishing she could rewind time, wishing she had made better choices, wishing she had been stronger, wishing she had been the mother they deserved. Pumpkin finished washing the last dish and turned to June, her face calm but filled with a seriousness that made June straighten her back. Pumpkin told her they could not keep living with fear, that they needed a plan, a real one, not an emotional promise, not a hopeful thought, but a concrete plan that would decide how they moved forward from this. She explained that trust was like glass, it breaks fast and repairs slow, and their glass had shattered too many times to pretend everything was fine. June nodded, understanding that this was her chance, her moment to prove that she was ready to fight for real. Pumpkin laid out the first step. She told June she needed to attend counseling every week without skipping, without excuses. She said June needed someone trained to help her handle her patterns, her addictions, her fears, and the shadows she kept running from for years. June agreed immediately, though a part of her wondered if she could truly follow through or if she would fail again. She felt a tremor of fear inside, but also a spark of determination that she had not felt in a long time. Pumpkin then told her she needed proof of stability, proof of progress, proof that she was building herself piece by piece, and that she was not sliding back into the same habits because the court would demand proof, and Pumpkin could not protect her if she did not have real evidence to show. June looked down but nodded again, because she knew this was not punishment, it was necessity. This was the only way to prove to her family and to the court that she could be trusted with even the smallest piece of their future. Pumpkin then spoke about boundaries, one she said were not negotiable. She explained that June could not take money again no matter how desperate she got, and that if she was struggling she must speak up, she must ask for help before making a choice that would destroy trust again. June wanted to cry because she realized how something as simple as asking for help had become so foreign to her. She had been hiding her weaknesses for so long that it had become a habit, stronger than honesty, stronger than love, stronger than responsibility. Pumpkin made it clear that she and Alana needed emotional safety more than anything else. They needed to know they could breathe inside their own home without fear of waking up to chaos. Alana then stepped out of her room silently, as if drawn by the weight of the conversation. She stood near the doorway, her eyes soft but filled with pain, and she said she did not need perfection from June. She did not need her to be a hero. She only wanted consistency. She wanted a mother who did not disappear into old habits, a mother who did not leave broken promises scattered around the house like memories. She wanted someone she could trust without being afraid. June felt her heart break open hearing that, because it was the raw truth spoken with the honesty of a child who had been forced to grow up too fast, and she realized that love without Consistency meant nothing, that affection without stability was just a temporary comfort that faded the moment reality returned. Pumpkin stepped closer to June and said she was willing to give her a chance, but only one last chance, because she could not let Alana's heart be shattered again. And June nodded, tears filling her eyes, not from sadness but from the overwhelming fear of losing them forever and the overwhelming desire to finally become the mother they needed. Night settled deeper into the house, the three of them standing under the warm dim kitchen light, each carrying their own wounds and hopes, and the future felt uncertain. But for the first time in a long time there was also a flicker of something new, a small fragile spark of possible healing, and maybe even forgiveness, but only if June truly changed, if she fought her demons, if she stayed steady, if she showed with real actions that she wanted her family back. And as they all quietly moved to their rooms, the silence felt different, not sharp, not cold, but heavy with possibility, because the next chapter of their life depended entirely on what June would choose tomorrow.